You may have heard that you should always color your royal icing to a few shades lighter than you want your finished product to be. Partially because royal icing gets darker as it dries, and partially because it needs time to develop to its full color. In a previous episode, we tested out the claim, does royal icing get darker as it dries? But today, what we're testing out is, does royal icing need time to develop to its full color? And if it does, how much? This is Cooney's Cookie Chronicles. In our previous episode titled Royal Icing Wet versus Dry, we tested out the claim, does royal icing get darker as it dries? You definitely want to check out that video because our results were not at all what I expected. Since I will be decorating cookies for an upcoming series featuring flamingos and monstera leaves in pink and green, I thought it prudent to use those colors for today's experiment. I will be making 2 shades of each color, 2 pinks and 2 greens. Now I'm not going to use just the straight gel color for 1 color each from my little kit of gel colors that I have from Anne Clark that my mother-in-law bought me. I will likely be needing to mix some colors to get the tone of colors I want for my cookies. So let's get started. So I've got my white royal icing here. I'm going to put some of this royal icing into the little bowl, and then I will start to color it. All right, so I'm going to use Bubblegum Pink from Anne Clark to start. I want a fairly decent pink. I kind of want like kind of a salmon pink. And this is definitely a bubblegum pink. So I'm definitely going to have to do something to tone it down and make it a little bit more of a salmon color rather than looking like we're having flamingo bubblegum. I also saw a blog somewhere that said to help tone down your pink, what you can do is add just a little bit of color from either blue or green. If you're using blue or green in your set, you would want to use the color that is in your set. And in this case, we are actually using green. So I intend to put a little bit of green, and I suspect I'll be using a little bit of black too, which is why I have my black out. All right, so that's a nice pink. So I'm going to put just a little bit of green, hopefully not too much. I'm a little afraid I'm going to get a toothpick. All right, so that's a little bit of green. I hope that's not too much, because if it is, I'm going to cry. Definitely is making a difference in the color. Wow. Interesting. Okay, now it's not near as vibrant as it was, so that definitely toned down the color, but unfortunately it also seems to have toned down my pink to a chewed bubblegum look color. So I also have some red here that I think I'm going to add in and see if we can get closer to the color that I'm thinking in my head. Now, I don't have a color that I'm trying to match. I thus far have not been at all successful in color matching. You know, I think I'm satisfied with this color for the lighter of the two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this royal icing and I'm going to smear it on the top of this cookie. And then I'm going to put the royal icing into the refrigerator for 24 hours. And then I'll pull it back out tomorrow, smear some of it on top of a new cookie, and then what we'll see is whether or not the icing is in fact a different color. And now I'm going to put my icing, well, half of it anyways, because I'm going to use the other half to make a deeper color. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of red and see what we get as far as that. Ooh, shoot. That's more red than I meant to put. We'll see what happens here. We may be adding some more pink and maybe some white because, oh, I don't know. Wow, that's definitely more of a salmon color. I think I still probably need, you know what? I actually think I need to add some white. All right. Well, I'm really happy with that pink. I'm thinking my other pink doesn't match now. What do I do? Maybe we'll be testing out more than 2 colors. I'm not sure I want that pink. I kind of like that one. And these don't exactly go together. But we can still test out this cookie to tomorrow, since I already did them. Let's see. I'm gonna add more. There we go. That is exactly the color that I had in my head. So take 2. Let's smear some on the cookie. I'm gonna just use the spatula here. Okay, maybe I'm not. That's terrible. All right, let's get some of this out. And then I'm probably gonna make it just a little bit darker, or maybe I should go a little bit lighter. That's what I should do. I should go a little bit lighter. Now I'm actually gonna, let's see, I'm gonna add a little bit of white just to lighten it up a little bit so that I can get that second tone that I'm going for. Okay, let's see. I'm attempting a third experiment here. I want to get a picture of them both wet just to see the tone difference between the wet. Hopefully it'll show on camera. We've had problems in the past with the colors showing well, the difference in colors showing well on camera. Okay, now it's time to do the green icings. All right, let's get some green here and see what we can do with this. I don't know how bright it's gonna come out, but I have a sneaking suspicion we're gonna need to put some black into this one. Yeah, this is definitely not the tone of green that I want for my monstera leaves. I want it toned down just a little bit. I wonder what would happen if I put a little bit of that red in. I was gonna use black, but, all right. I'm gonna use the red. See what happens. I'm gonna try to put as little as possible. Just a little tiny bit, a dab. I'm afraid. All right, I'm afraid, so we're gonna use the toothpick here. Yeah, it's definitely making a difference. Ooh, interesting swirly swirl there. Yeah, I would say it's toning it down. It is warm. Put just a little bit more of that red. I don't want a whole drop. I only want part of a drop. All right, this is going to be the light green, and then I'll darken it up from there. I may actually end up having to use some black. Okay, so let's get 2 full cookies. All right, let's attempt to make this a little darker. We don't want it too much darker. Do one little dab there and see how that goes. Seems like we need a little bit more red. So we're gonna take a dab. Oh, we ended up with a whole dab of red there. A dabber more than I expected. Uh-oh. That's a lot more red than I wanted. No, it's gonna turn brown. Dang it. This is what happens when icing goes wrong. That is awful. That is absolutely awful. I may have to start all over again. Oh. Should have gone with the black. Maybe I can salvage it. Here, I'll put some more green. Oh, maybe. Maybe. Maybe that will do it. It's pretty dark already, so I think I'm gonna add a little bit more white. It might be just a little bit too dark, so we're gonna add a little bit more white, see how that goes. I'll take it right off the top here. I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's good. It's definitely darker than the green. It's similar tone to the dark pink. All right. So tomorrow we'll pull out that icing out of the fridge, see how the color has developed, slap it on some cookies, and compare it to what we did here today. So I have a confession to make. Today is not 24 hours later, but fear not, the samples that we needed to take were taken 24 hours after the original icing was colored. So I had a little problem while I was collecting the samples on day 2. Let me show you some of the video and you see if you can spot what went wrong. So it's been 24 hours and we have our icing from yesterday with its color fully developed. Yeah, that's me messing up the audio again. We have a history of this. Me and audio, it's kind of like Murphy's Law. If I can find a way to screw up the audio, I will. So instead of torturing you with that terrible audio, I'll just tell you what went down. So I realized pretty quickly after I took the samples on day 1 that I was not going to actually be able to finish the experiment and shoot the final video on day 2. It occurred to me that since I needed to let the icing dry to be able to compare apples to apples, I was going to have to wait a little bit longer. And since we know that there is an absolute possibility that the icing could darken as it dries, I knew that I could not compare a wet iced cookie to a dry iced cookie. So because of my work schedule, I knew that I was not going to be able to finish the video for a few more days. So what I did is I took the cookies, I put them in a zip top bag, and I threw them in the freezer. Today I took them out, let them come back to full room temperature. Now, I do notice something strange, that even though the cookies are absolutely 100% dry, since I've taken them out of the freezer, some of them look a little tiny bit glossy. I'm not entirely sure what that is, and I now know for the future, I can't just throw them into the freezer in a normal zip top bag because it's going to skew my shininess or my dulliness of my iced cookies completed. Now you may be wondering how I can be absolutely sure which samples are which. Well, I'll tell you, 3 words: edible ink marker. I wrote on the back of each cookie. I put a 1 for day 1, a 2 for day 2, and that is how I can be absolutely sure that I'm not mixing up my samples. So now we are ready to compare. I have arranged the cookies so that the samples from day 1 are on the left and the samples from day 2 are on the right. Now I have noticed that sometimes the camera does not pick up the colors the same way that the naked eye does. But I can tell you with all confidence that what I see here with my eyeballs doesn't really look any different. Each day looks about the same. If I was told that is from day 1 and that is from day 2, I might be able to convince myself that the cookies from day 2 are a little bit darker. But to be honest with you, if nobody told me what to look for, I guarantee you I would not think that there was any difference in the colors. You may be thinking, well, you did have several days in between when you took the samples and today when we're looking at the final product. And I will say that in the past, I have had icing that I've put into the freezer, and it does definitely seem that it does get darker over time in the days after I put it into the freezer. But I can tell you that while I was taking the samples on day 2, that I was thinking the color does not look any different to me. So I am convinced in this case that there is not much of a difference as a result of the color developing in that 24 hours. So for these exact colors, I'm gonna say that our results are inconclusive, which tells me that I should probably conduct this experiment again with different variables and see how it goes.
Next time on Cooney's Cookie Chronicles.
Have you ever made ice cream sandwiches at home? I haven't. So today, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I started my day by baking chocolate chip cookies from frozen. I'm not a huge fan of big chunks of chocolate. I always grind up all of the chocolate that I work with. Bonus points if you can spot what I was listening to while I was prepping. It cost me like $6 and it is absolutely delicious. It just makes the cutest tiny little scoops. So let's see how this goes. Let's put this on the cookie. I'm not getting an even smushing here. Cross your fingers for me that they hold up.